all right. Who's ready for some more data and statistics? Me. All right, today, data and statistics unit, day 3, I think. We're going to be exploring things a little bit further. So, goals for today are we're going to look deeper at measures of center, which I briefly talked about in the last lesson. We had talked about how the mean, aka the average, is a type of measure of center, and we talked about the fact that there are other measures of center which we're going to explore today, and those are going to be the median and the mode of a data set. So to kick things off, I'm going to start by going over what is measure of center mean. In statistics, a measure of center is a statistic that can generally describe a set of data, but with one number. So if you have a bajillion numbers, but you want to go to someone or write a news article or present something that explains the data using only one number, that's what a measure of center could do. You could say the average or the median or the mode of the data. And then instead of talking about all 100 numbers or whatever, you can describe the data with one singular number. You could use one of 3 measures of center. The mean, which we've gone over, that's the average. That's found by adding all of the numbers up and dividing by the number of data points. You could also use something called the median or something called the mode. And you might be asking yourself, why are there 3 measures of center? Why isn't there just one? Well, the answer is it depends on your data set. Is the measure of center a good statistic? Well, let's look at an example of that. Let's say, hypothetically, the Dallas Mavericks decided to bring me onto their team roster. And after 10 games, they decide to evaluate my stats. They want to know if I'm worth keeping on the team. So they decide to look at my last 10 games. And they find that I scored in the last 10 games 12 points, 12 points, 13 points, 14 points, 15 points, 15 points, 16 points, 18 points, caught on fire, scored 42 in one game, and I threw up a 50 burger in one game. So overall, my statistics are kind of centralized in one spot, but you'll notice, if you remember that word from last time, I've got some outliers up here. These aren't typical to my scoring performance, but they happen. They are part of my statistics. So the Mavericks stats department calculated that my average score, and they used average, so they used the mean. So this is another word for mean. My mean in the last 10 games was 20.7 points in my last 10 games. Is that accurate? Does that accurately describe this data set? Technically, the mean, the average, is a measure of center. It's a data point that can describe the whole set. But if you're trying to tell someone that my average was a little bit more than 18 points, 20.7, that doesn't seem to describe this data set very well. For the most part, I'm scoring somewhere around 13, 14, 15 points. I'm somewhere down here. If I was going to use a measure of center to describe this data set, you'd think it would be closer to like 13 or 14 points. But because of these outliers, it dragged my average up to 20.7. It makes me sound a lot better than I actually am. Now, you have to be careful when you read things and when you use different statistics, because you can paint a picture to someone that's not super true, but if they aren't paying close enough attention, they're going to believe it. If you told someone I averaged 20.7 points, but they didn't have the data to look back at it, they might think, oh, wow, this guy scores 20 points a night, when really I'm scoring a whole lot less than that. Anyways, there are multiple measures of center because maybe there's a better measure, and in this case, maybe the median or the mode would better describe how I am as a basketball player. So let's look at the other two. One of the other measures of center is called the median. And what the median is, it literally means the middle number, the actual middle number of the data set. So the way that you find the actual middle, the median, this part is important right here. You must order your data from least to greatest. So even if you're given a set of data that's all scrambled up, your first step has to be to order the data from smallest to largest. And then you can take a look and find the actual middle number. So there's two scenarios here. Scenario one, if the data has an odd number of values in it, you can actually find one single middle number, and that's going to be your median. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have an odd number of values in this set of data. So that means smallest, largest, next smallest, next largest. I have one middle number. 9 is the actual median of this data set because it falls dead smack in the middle of the data. Now, if you have a data set where there is an even number of values, so this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers in it, you're not going to be able to find one single middle number. So what you need to do is find two. What two numbers are left in the middle? So just count down to the middle. Here are my middle two numbers, because there's no way to get it down to one middle number. And the way that you will find the actual median here is you're going to take those two middle numbers, 5 and 7, and you're going to find the mean of those two numbers, meaning you're going to add them up and divide by 2. So 5 plus 7 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. So the middle actual median of this data set is 6. And I found that by taking the two middle numbers, adding them up, and dividing by 2. And that's median. Median can find you the actual middle number. Just pay attention if it's even or odd, and also make sure you order your data set first from least to greatest. All right, our other measure of center. So we've got the mean, we've got the median, and the other one is the mode. The mode is the value or values, it might be more than one, in a data set that occur most often. When you look at your set of data, the mode asks which of these numbers happens most frequently. So let's look at a data set. In this data set, I've got the numbers 11, 13, 15, 15, 18, 21, 24, 24. What you'll notice here is the number 15 occurs twice in this data set, and the number 24 occurs twice in this data set. A set of data can have one mode, multiple modes, or no mode. Sometimes there's going to be one number that occurs more frequently than the others. That would be your mode. Sometimes, like in this scenario, you're going to have more than one mode. Modes, plural. 15 and 24. In this scenario, 15 occurred twice and 24 occurred twice. And sometimes you'll have a set of data, let's look at the one just above here, where 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 11, nothing occurs most often. In that scenario, you would have no mode. And please don't write 0. 0 is an actual number. If there's no mode, you should write no mode or none to indicate that there is nothing. Anyways, those are the measures of center. We did mean on the previous day, and now we've got median and we've got mode. And we're going to look at one example to choose and look at when is one measure of center maybe better at describing a data set than another. So in this scenario, the question is being asked, how much do climbing shoes cost? And at this store, there are, 8 different pairs of climbing shoes. There's a $40 pair, all the way up to a $142 pair. So a wide-ranging cost of shoes. And if you wanted to answer this question with one number, do you want to give the average, the mean? Do you want to give the middle number, the median, or the most often occurring number? We're going to look and try to determine which mean, median, or mode is the best at answering this question. So my plan of attack, your plan of attack, is let's calculate the mean, let's calculate the median, let's calculate the mode, and then we're going to throw this data onto a dot plot. so that we can visualize it, see it a bit better. And we're going to see where the mode is on that dot plot, where's the median and where's the mean, and we're going to see which one best describes the data. So first things first, let's calculate each. I've already kind of started this. The mean is found by adding all the numbers and dividing by, in this case, 8, because there are 8 numbers. So if you add them all up, you get 548, and 548 divided by 8 gives us our mean. Our mean is 68 and a half, 68.5. All right, so there's our first measure of center. We'll see if it's a good one in a second. Our next measure is the median. The median, I've already ordered them from least to greatest. That is your first step. They must be ordered from least to greatest. And now we're going to find the middle number. So I just take one from both ends until I have 1. And in this case, there's actually 2 stuck in the middle, 57 and 65. So I'm going to add those 2 up and divide by 2, aka I'm finding the mean, the average of those 2 numbers, which is 122 divided by 2, which is 61. All right, so our mean, our average is 68.5, our median is 61, and our mode, the number that occurs most frequently, in this data set happens to be 40. There is one mode, and that's 40, because 40 occurs twice, as opposed to the others, which all occur once. All right, so now the question is, which of these best describes this data set? Which of these can answer how much do climbing shoes cost using one single number? So the best way I think to do this is, let's look at this on a dot plot, which I've already set up for you. We have our outlier, the $142 pair, and we have our lowest cost, which occurs the most often. There's 2 $40 pairs. So our mode falls right here at the bottom of the chart. And the reason I would say this is not a good measure of center is because it's not in the middle of anything. It's actually all the way at the bottom, and everything else is bigger than it. So the mode is less than most of the data, and it doesn't represent the data well. So we're going to say, mode, you do not act as the best measure of center for this data set. So our next up is the median, and this falls right in the middle. There are 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 numbers that are less than it, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 numbers that are greater than it. This is really right in the middle. And then our average, 68.5, it's not bad, but it's greater than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's greater than 6 of the shoes. I mean, that's not really that good of a measure of center. It's not a good descriptor of this data set, because actually most of the shoes are less than this average. And the reason the average is thrown off so much is because of that outlier. It really increased the average. So I'm going to say the mean, not very good. The median is the best representation of this data because it's right in the center. So if you were going to answer the question, I'd say, at this store, climbing shoes cost about $61. And that's a pretty fair answer to a customer that's going to walk in. They might find some shoes a little bit less, a little bit more, but on average, most shoes are about $61, so the median is a great measure of center for this data set. Anyways, good luck today. Pay attention to what you're doing. I'm sure you're using a calculator when you're calculating your average, your mean. Just double check your work that you've typed in all of the numbers correctly. And anyways, do your best. Have fun. Math.